Good evening, everyone. Imagine walking into a room where the walls themselves seem to glow with an inner fire, where 6 tons of amber panels backed with gold leaf catch the candlelight and transform an entire chamber into what witnesses called the 8th wonder of the world. Now imagine that room vanishing without a trace during the chaos of World War II, becoming one of history's most tantalizing mysteries. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey through time, from the glittering courts of 18th century Prussia to the dark days of Nazi occupation, and into the decades-long search that continues even today. This is the story of the Amber Room, a masterpiece of art, a symbol of imperial power, a casualty of war, and perhaps the greatest lost treasure of World War II. Our story begins not in Russia, but in Prussia in the early 1700s. Friedrich I of Prussia commissioned what would become the Amber Room from the finest craftsmen in his kingdom. The chief architect was Andreas Schluter, and the work was continued by the amber master Gottfried Wolfram. But this wasn't just any architectural project. This was an attempt to create something the world had never seen. Amber, as you may know, is fossilized tree resin, ancient, beautiful, and extraordinarily difficult to work with. It's brittle, it's temperamental, and it comes in fragments, not in the large panels you'd need to cover walls. The craftsmen had to carefully select, cut, and polish over 100,000 pieces of amber, ranging in color from pale honey to deep cognac, and fit them together like an impossibly complex jigsaw puzzle. The panels they created were then mounted on walls backed with gold leaf, which made the amber seem to glow from within. Mirrors were strategically placed to multiply the effect. The Amber Room in its original form covered about 180 square feet. But here's where our story takes its first turn. In 1716, Friedrich Wilhelm I, Friedrich's son and a decidedly less art-loving monarch, gave the Amber Room away. His gift was to Peter the Great of Russia, a diplomatic gesture meant to seal an alliance against Sweden. Peter was reportedly enchanted by the room when he saw it, and Friedrich Wilhelm, who preferred spending money on his army rather than palatial decorations, was happy to oblige. The Amber Room was carefully dismantled, packed into 18 large boxes, and shipped to St. Petersburg. It would never return to German soil, at least not for another 227 years, and not under circumstances anyone could have imagined. The Amber Room found its permanent home during the reign of Peter's daughter, Elizabeth. In 1755, she had it installed in the Catherine Palace at Tsarskoye Selo, about 15 miles south of St. Petersburg. But the room had grown. Italian architect Bartolomeo Rastrelli redesigned and expanded it to fit the much larger space in the Catherine Palace. Additional amber panels were commissioned from Russian craftsmen. Elaborate carvings were added. Precious stones were incorporated into the design. Venetian mirrors, amber figurines, and mosaics of amber and precious stones adorned every surface. The room now covered more than 590 square feet and contained approximately 6 tons of amber. Visitors to the Catherine Palace were stunned. The room seemed to capture sunlight during the day and candlelight at night, creating an almost magical atmosphere. The amber itself displayed an extraordinary range of colors, from almost transparent yellows to deep, dark oranges and reds. Some described it as walking into a jewel box. Others said it was like standing inside a sunset. For nearly 2 centuries, the Amber Room served as a private meditation chamber for the czars, a trophy room, and eventually a gathering place for the imperial family. It survived the Russian Revolution of 1917, was nationalized by the Bolsheviks, and became a showpiece for the newly formed Soviet Union, a treasure of the people rather than the czars. Then came June 22, 1941. When Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union, he set in motion the largest military operation in history. 3 million German soldiers swept across the border, but the Wehrmacht wasn't alone. Following close behind the combat troops was a special organization called the Einsatzstab Reichsleiter Rosenberg, or ERR, the organization responsible for looting art and cultural treasures throughout Nazi-occupied Europe. The Nazis had a particular obsession with what they called Germanic heritage. Hitler and his inner circle believed that many great works of art actually belonged to Germany by right of culture and blood. The Amber Room, originally created in Prussia, was at the top of their list. As German forces advanced toward Leningrad, Soviet curators at the Catherine Palace faced an impossible task. They had successfully evacuated many treasures, but the Amber Room presented unique challenges. The amber panels were extremely fragile. They'd become brittle with age. When workers attempted to remove them, the amber began to crumble in their hands. There simply wasn't time to devise a safe way to dismantle and evacuate the room. In desperation, the curators tried to hide the Amber Room. They covered the amber panels with thin wallpaper and gauze, hoping the Germans would overlook it. It was a futile gesture. On October 14, 1941, German troops occupied Tsarskoye Selo, and within 36 hours, a team of German experts, men who knew exactly what they were looking for, had carefully dismantled the Amber Room. They worked with precision and care, packing the panels into 27 crates. The entire operation was supervised by 2 German art historians who had prepared specifically for this mission. The crates were loaded onto trains and transported to Königsberg in East Prussia, now Kaliningrad, Russia. There in Königsberg Castle, the Amber Room was reassembled and put on display. The Nazi Gauleiter of East Prussia, Erich Koch, wanted to show off the recovered Germanic masterpiece to the public. And for nearly 3 years, that's where it stayed, visible to visitors, photographed and documented. But the war was turning against Germany. By August 1944, Royal Air Force bombers had devastated much of Königsberg. The city was burning. As Soviet forces advanced from the east, orders came down to evacuate or hide the most valuable items in the castle. And this is where our mystery truly begins. What happened to the Amber Room after August 1944 remains one of history's greatest unsolved puzzles. We have fragments of evidence, contradictory testimonies, and tantalizing clues, but no definitive answer. The last confirmed sighting of the Amber Room intact was in April 1945, just before Soviet forces captured Königsberg. Alfred Rode, the director of the Königsberg Art Collection, told his colleagues that he had been ordered to pack up the Amber Room. But where did it go? Some witnesses claimed they saw crates being loaded onto ships at Königsberg's port. But which ships and where were they headed? One theory suggests the treasure was loaded onto the Wilhelm Gustloff, a German transport ship, except the Wilhelm Gustloff was sunk in January 1945 by a Soviet submarine, killing an estimated 9,000 people in the worst maritime disaster in history. If the Amber Room was on that ship, it now lies at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. Others reported seeing crates moved into underground tunnels and bunkers beneath Königsberg Castle. East Prussia was honeycombed with such tunnels, built during the war to protect against bombing raids. Soviet forces did discover some hidden treasures in these tunnels, but not the Amber Room. Another theory holds that the Amber Room never left Königsberg at all. Some believe it was hidden in one of the castle's secret chambers or buried in the rubble when the British bombed the castle in 1945. Soviet occupation forces thoroughly searched the ruins, but by then much of the castle had been destroyed. Perhaps the most tragic possibility is that the Amber Room was simply destroyed, consumed by fire during the bombing of Königsberg, or deliberately destroyed by retreating German forces who didn't want it to fall back into Soviet hands. Then there are the stories that fuel treasure hunters to this day. tales of secret Nazi gold trains, of treasures hidden in salt mines, of shipments to Bavaria or Austria, of crates smuggled to South America. The search for the Amber Room began almost immediately after the war ended. Stalin personally ordered Soviet intelligence to find it. It became a matter of national pride, recovering this symbol of Russian imperial glory from the Germans who had stolen it. The Soviets interrogated every German official who might have knowledge. They questioned Alfred Roth extensively until he died under mysterious circumstances in 1945. His wife died shortly afterward, and both deaths were officially attributed to typhus, though some suspected they were killed to protect the secret. If they knew where the Amber Room was hidden, they took that knowledge to their graves. In 1946, a Soviet investigator named Yulian Semyonov claimed he'd found witnesses who saw the Amber Room being crated up and moved to a bunker system near Königsberg. Excavations were authorized, but nothing was found. Throughout the Cold War, the hunt continued quietly. Every few years, a new lead would emerge. Someone would claim their father had been part of the detail that hid the treasure. Metal detectors would ping suggestively in a basement in Bavaria. A deathbed confession would point to a sealed mine shaft in the mountains. In 1968, a German researcher named Georg Stein published a sensational claim he knew where the Amber Room was hidden. Before he could reveal the location, he died mysteriously. Was it natural causes, murder? The mystery only deepened. The 1980s brought new hope when two amateur treasure hunters, Karl Heinz Kleine and Georg Keller, claimed to have discovered its location using electromagnetic detection equipment. They were convinced it was buried in a lagoon near Königsberg. Excavations were attempted. Nothing. Perhaps the strangest twist came in 1997 when German police raided the home of a man trying to sell a small piece of amber mosaic. Analysis confirmed it came from the Amber Room. The seller's father had apparently been part of the German team that evacuated Königsberg, but he claimed his father found just this one piece in the ruins, not the whole room. Another dead end. Over the decades, the search for the Amber Room consumed lives, fortunes, and reputations. Treasure hunters poured money into expeditions that went nowhere. Historians devoted careers to following leads that dissolved into rumor and wishful thinking. The Amber Room became more than a lost treasure. It became an obsession. By the 1980s, Soviet authorities faced a difficult reality. The original Amber Room would probably never be found. The decision was made to do something that seemed almost impossible, rebuild it from scratch. In 1979, work began at the Catherine Palace under the direction of master craftsman Alexander Kudrinsky. They had photographs, some original drawings, and detailed descriptions, but reconstructing the Amber Room would require rediscovering lost techniques and solving problems that had challenged the original 18th century craftsmen. Russian amber specialists spent years learning how to select, cut, and polish amber to match the original. They studied historical techniques, they experimented with different backing methods. The work was painstaking, intricate, and maddeningly slow. The project took 24 years and cost an estimated $11 million, much of it funded by German donations, a gesture of reconciliation for the wartime theft. Russian and German craftsmen worked side by side, united by their dedication to recreating this lost masterpiece. On May 31, 2003, the 300th anniversary of St. Petersburg's founding, the reconstructed Amber Room was unveiled. Vladimir Putin and German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder attended the ceremony together. The room was declared a symbol of Russian-German friendship, a phoenix rising from the ashes of war. And it is spectacular. 6 tons of amber, meticulously crafted and assembled, once again glowing in the Catherine Palace. Visitors today can walk into the room and see what the czars saw, what Nazi looters stole, and what Soviet curators fought desperately to save. But it's not the original. And somewhere out there, at the bottom of the Baltic, in a collapsed bunker, in a sealed cave, or perhaps burned to ash in 1945, the real Amber Room may still exist. You might ask, why does this matter? Why are we still fascinated by the Amber Room more than 80 years after it vanished? I think there are several reasons. First, it represents something larger than itself. The Amber Room is one of thousands upon thousands of cultural treasures looted during World War II. The Nazis systematically plundered entire countries, stealing artwork, religious artifacts, libraries, and cultural heritage on an industrial scale. Much has been recovered, but much remains lost. The Amber Room has become a symbol of all these losses, a reminder that war destroys not just lives, but also the cultural memory of civilizations. Second, it speaks to our fundamental desire to solve mysteries. We humans don't like loose ends. We want answers. The fact that something as large and significant as the Amber Room could simply vanish challenges our sense that the world is knowable, that mysteries can be solved. The search for the Amber Room is partly about the treasure itself, but it's also about proving that determined investigation can eventually uncover truth. Third, it reminds us of the fragility of beauty. The Amber Room survived fires, revolutions, and 2 centuries of political upheaval, only to disappear in a matter of months during wartime chaos. It's a sobering reminder that the things we create, no matter how beautiful, how precious, how seemingly permanent, can be destroyed or lost in an instant. And finally, I think the Amber Room matters because it represents hope. The fact that Russia chose to rebuild it, that Germany helped fund its reconstruction, that craftsmen dedicated their lives to recreating this beauty, that tells us something important about the human spirit. We can rebuild, we can recreate, we can choose to restore rather than simply mourn. So here we are, in 2026, 81 years after the Amber Room vanished from Königsberg Castle. The search continues, though less intensely than before. Occasionally, someone claims a new discovery, announces a new theory, or requests permission to excavate a promising site. Most of these leads go nowhere. The reconstructed Amber Room stands in the Catherine Palace, welcoming thousands of visitors each year. It's beautiful, impressive, a testament to human craftsmanship and determination. But those who study the photographs of the original say there was something about it, a depth, a warmth, a quality that comes only with age, that cannot quite be replicated. Perhaps the original Amber Room lies at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, surrounded by the wreckage of war. Perhaps it's buried under tons of rubble in Kaliningrad, waiting for some future excavation to reveal it. Perhaps it was destroyed long ago, its fragments scattered or burned, its beauty lost forever. Or perhaps, and this is what keeps treasure hunters awake at night, perhaps it's still out there, packed carefully in crates, hidden in a bunker or cave or sealed mine shaft, waiting for someone to solve the puzzle and bring it back to light. We may never know. And in a way, perhaps that's appropriate. The Amber Room has become more than a physical object. It's become a legend, a mystery that captures our imagination precisely because it remains unsolved. What we do know is this: for a brief time in history, human craftsmen created something so beautiful that it was called the 8th wonder of the world. It brought joy to those who saw it. It survived for 2 centuries, and when it was lost, people cared enough to spend 24 years recreating it from memory and fragments. That perhaps is the real treasure, not the amber itself, but what it represents. Our human capacity to create beauty, our determination to preserve it, and our refusal to let even the devastation of war erase the masterpieces we've made. The original Amber Room may be gone, but its story and the questions it leaves us will endure for generations to come. Thank you.